Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I thought it would be fun to go over the tier list for Warzone seasons over the last few years. We are finally coming to the end of Warzone in its iteration at the moment as Warzone 2 approaches, and we've seen so many changes to this game. It's been ridiculous to keep up, and it's been a hell of a ride, and I thought why not try and rank some of the seasons and see where it falls after this. Of course, let me know your opinions. I'm sure there's probably lots of changes, but I'm just going to talk about some of the things that were added to Warzone, some of the weapons, some of the changes and things like that, and we can get started with Warzone Season 2 and Modern Warfare Season 2, really. This was when Warzone was added, and I'm going to chuck this straight in S tier. This is when Warzone dropped. It was huge when it came out, and it still is a really fun experience now. We also saw the Growl and the VLK Rogue added to the game, but I think this season stands out as S tier because this is all where it all started, and we had so much fun jumping into Verdansk and really enjoying it. I've got Warzone Season 3 right here. I'm going to put this in B tier, I think, because it just continued a lot of what made the game really fun. We got some UI changes. We also saw some additions to playlists. Squads were added, for example. And then they also added the Bruin and the Renetti. And as we know, the Bruin was such a fantastic gun when it launched. It was ridiculously strong and definitely the meta for a short while. On to Warzone Season 4. This I'm also going to chuck in B tier. There wasn't a lot of content added, and by this stage, after a couple of seasons with just operators and skins and things like that, a lot of people were starting to really want some map changes and different updates to the game. In Warzone Season 4, though, we did see the Fennec and the AMAX added, and we know the AMAX is still a fan favorite to this day. It was a pretty simple season. There wasn't too much else added to the game. They did have the 200-player BR for a little while, but there wasn't as much content as we're used to now. So, in Season 5, though, this is where they started to kick things up a notch. And Season 5, Stadium opened up. So I'm putting this in A tier because that was a huge event. It was so much fun. It changed the map up a lot. They also added the train to the game. The train, changed the way that we rotated. It gave another POI. It was really interesting to include in the BR. And they also added zip lines into a lot of the buildings and a lot of areas. And those are just something we would expect to be in the game right now. But you can see there it was added in Season 5, which really changed up the way the map worked and made a lot of flank routes and cool plays. Unfortunately, though, Season 5, they did add some very average weapons. The AN-94, the ISO, and the Fin. Nothing that was really that exciting for me. Then we have Warzone Season 6, and this is definitely an S tier season in my mind, simply because of the Haunting of Verdansk. It was so much fun dropping into the Haunting of Verdansk. It was definitely one of my favorite modes that we've ever seen in Warzone. There was a lot of really funny moments and a lot of great squad times. Plenty of jump scares. It was pretty hilarious. They also added in the subway system, which changed the way people rotated around Verdansk. It was really interesting. A lot of fast traveling and changes up there. And, of course, the weapons that they added in. The AS Val, which was so amazing when it got dropped in. It was really broken and busted with how fast the TTK was. And then the SPR, which was also pretty busted as well because it was hit scan, but still one of the most satisfying snipers to use. So that right there is my Modern Warfare tier list. That's where we sit at the end of Modern Warfare 2019 coming out. And then we have Cold War dropping. And as we know, when Cold War dropped, it added Rebirth Island, and for that, I'm putting that as an A tier. Rebirth Island is definitely my favorite mode in the game. It always really has been since it dropped. Fast-paced, really fun, quick, and I absolutely love Rebirth, and a lot of people have been playing that pretty much non-stop since this dropped. But of course, what's keeping this out of S tier is the Vanguard integration the Cold War integration of weapons was pretty busted. The DMR was extremely broken, and then a lot of the other guns were just not very good. So a lot of people just ended up using the DMR. Of course, the MAC-10, the Groza, the Street Sweeper, they were all added in as well, but it just really felt lackluster in terms of a lot of the guns being pretty average and the DMR being so broken. And a lot of people don't even remember how crazy that was. When you go back and watch old clips, it was pretty ridiculous just how busted the DMR was. Going into probably my least favorite season, was Cold War Season 2. And the reason for this was they added a lot of weapons that sucked. The LC-10, the Farah, they both sucked when they came out. This also was the rise of the AUG and the busted 3x scope. The FFAR was dominating. It was pretty ridiculous how broken some of those guns were. I mean, a lot of fun too at the same time, but it just didn't allow for a lot of weapon variety and balancing, which is what made Warzone so fun. And then they also were promising big changes to Verdansk, and the big change that we got was the boat crashing into the side of the map down near prison, and then the zombies, they kind of moved around the map. So a pretty lackluster season. And the other thing, this season was so long and there just wasn't a lot of content added, and that was pretty disappointing. But they really made up for it with Season 3. I think Season 3, in my mind, was probably the best season of Warzone while Cold War was out. There was huge changes. We started off, remember, with the Rebirth After Dark, which was extremely good, and it was just in the game for a short time while everyone built hype for the Verdansk changes. And we got those huge changes with Verdansk 84. They changed a lot of the map up. There were some really cool changes to the way people rotated through the map, and it looked amazing with the different lighting changes. And then in the middle of the season was probably peak Warzone in my mind. The meta was really open, there was a lot of really great things happening, and they added Nakatomi Tower in the 80s hero event. It was awesome to see Die Hard integration in there, and there was also so many great gameplay changes with the way people were moving through the map. The weapons in this season, though, pretty lackluster. The PPSH, when it first came out, it wasn't too great, and they also added the Swiss, which later they buffed to be probably the meta sniper, but this was pretty amazing season. And then they also changed the Rebirth lighting to that really amazing crisp lighting to get away from that yellow, so definitely one of my favorite seasons for sure. They continued the momentum in Season 4 as well. They did a lot of balancing changes, and I'm going to put this season in A tier just because the weapons they added were all amazing. The C58, the MG82, the OTS, they were all really awesome. They added some changes to Verdansk as well with the satellite towers, and then also they changed downtown a little bit during this season. They added the red doors. They put dirt bikes in. There were so many different things happening. And then we also had the EM2. Oh, no, that was the next season, sorry. But there was a lot of really good changes in here. So speaking of the EM2, that was in Season 5. And Season 5, it did continue that momentum, but there wasn't a lot changed. And other than the EM2, there wasn't too many good weapons. It was just the Tech 9 in that season as well. The Battle of Verdansk was really advertised to be amazing, and it was a bit of a letdown. And then they did add Combat Scout and Tempered. So there was some good changes, but again, it continued on a lot of that momentum. Really good balance in Season 5. Came into Season 6 pretty hyped to see what would finish off Verdansk. There was a lot of rumors and a lot of things happening at this point with Caldera being leaked and rumored and a lot of things happening. I'm just going to put Season 6 as B tier. I feel like there was a lot of potential with this season, especially with Halloween coming in, but just wasn't as good with the Ghosts of Verdansk. It just didn't have that same hit, especially with how good the Haunting of Verdansk was the year before. And they added the Lapper, the Grav, and the Ironhide, probably the weakest Cold War gun integration in my mind. There wasn't too many guns that changed the meta, and I just feel like they kind of fizzled out with the ending of Verdansk. They did the Final Hours playlist, they brought a lot of guns back, but it just didn't feel that great. And unfortunately, the not that great continued with Vanguard Season 1. In my mind, this is a C tier season. It's not quite as busted as, well, I probably could put it in D tier. I'm going to see how I feel, but C tier at the moment just because there were so many things that weren't optimized with Caldera. It came in and console players could barely play. The map was pretty stale. We didn't really love it at the start. Rebirth got taken away, so a lot of people were really grumpy that they didn't have those options. And then also, who can forget Krampus? Krampus was just a pain in the ass as he was cruising around Caldera, just being so annoying. They did do some balancing changes, but I feel like a lot of the Vanguard weapons, just like Cold War, were pretty average. They did add the Cooper carbine, the Wellgun, and the Gorenko, but the Vanguard weapons came in and they just felt not very good, and they did need a lot of buffing. So that's why I've got this season as probably my worst Vanguard season in my opinion. But then, as soon as Vanguard Season 2 hit, This was, again, a peak season of Warzone in my mind. They added the Armaguerra, they added the Whitley, the KGM40, some good changes. They also really shifted up the balancing. They made lots of adjustments to weapons, both in Cold War and in Vanguard, to make things much more balanced than they were. And then we had Rebirth Reinforced introduced, and the Rebirth map was drastically changed, and I think for the better. It's definitely the best iteration that we've had of Rebirth, and it's so much fun. They changed the colors up again, and just everything played really well. And then they also tinkered around with Caldera. They added Chemical Factory and they added Weapon Labs. They changed up some of the field upgrades and things like that. Remember the Nebula bombs and everything? They were added in this season. So that was a particularly good bounce back and one of my favorite seasons. And unfortunately, they did not continue this momentum with Vanguard Season 3. I think this is another C tier because there was a lot of things that were promised and it just didn't hit. And there was also quite a few annoying things added this season. Serpentine, fuck Serpentine. It is my least favorite thing they've ever added to this game. It is so annoying. It was so overpowered. It still is really annoying. And that was added in this season. The Radar Jammer, fuck the Radar Jammer. It is so annoying, and it was so annoying when it came out for Rebirth. It just covered the entire map. It was really, really frustrating. The Godzilla and the Kong event, bit of a letdown in my opinion. The skins and packs were cool, but the event itself was pretty average. And then the meta also started shifting in Season 3 basically to the Vanguard Laser Beam no recoil meta that we saw for months with the STG and then into the NZ41. So probably a disappointing season, especially with how good Season 2 was. Then we get into Season 4 and we had the drop of Fortune's Keep. And for me, I really do like Fortune's Keep. It's a great map, but then they also made so many balancing changes. At the start, we did have NZ41 laser beam meta, but they did tinker with that. But then also some really great weapon additions with the Marco 5 and the UGM. Marco 5 is still one of my favorite guns added to Warzone. I absolutely love the way it plays, and a lot of people really enjoyed using the UGM. They also added things like portable redeploys and buy stations, lots of quality of life changes as well with the way loadouts work and everything. I thought Vanguard Season 4 was really fun and definitely one of the smoothest launches. When they launched Fortune's Keep, I thought, man, it's going to be really tough to have this in the game, but they did it so smoothly and it ran so well. And I think it was a really great way to change up the way the game played. And we get into the very final season of Warzone, and this started off as a B tier for me, but I think it is somewhere between B and A. I'm actually going to leave it B tier for the minute. The weapons they added, pretty average. The BP-50, not as good as everyone hoped it was going to be. The EX-1, the laser gun, terrible. The RA, pretty average. Then they added the Liena, and it's okay. So a lot of weapons people were really excited about, and it just kind of fell flat. They changed up Rebirth lighting a few times in this season. They've had the sunset lighting and then also Rebirth After Dark. The Rebirth After Dark, in my opinion, was really, really poor. It didn't just hit the same way that the Season 3 in Cold War did. And then we had some terrible playlist decisions in this season where the first 4 weeks they had like the rotating days. Rebirth was taken away pretty much every day and a lot of people were really angry about that. And then also some updates to Caldera. Just to make everything really balanced and changed. We saw the great balancing of Season 5 Reloaded, though, which is, again, why I feel like maybe this season can be an A tier. The changes to the ground loot, the changes to the meta, absolutely amazing. This is probably the best all-around meta we've had right now, and the ground loot is fantastic. And then finally, we've just finished up with Rebirth Supreme, which was probably my favorite Rebirth mode in the entire existence of Warzone. It was a lot of fun. So there we go, that is my list. I think I'm pretty happy with this. Lots of different interesting seasons, so many different modes, lots of great memories. Let me know what you guys think. What's your favorite season? I'm really excited to see where we go for Warzone 2. And also, hopefully we finish off Warzone 1 with a bang. Thanks for watching.